I'll run my intro and then we'll get started. Hi. Sorry, I know it's late, at least for people on the East Coast where I'm at, but thank you for joining me if you're here. I still don't have the chat feature working, so if you chat with me, I will reach out to you and thank you. So, I had a really interesting woman reach out to me on Twitter, and it was in relation to one of my posts about the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. And she has a really interesting treasure trove of videos that she made, God bless her, that she took the time to put them all together. And it's about Ralph Underwager and his wife, Helita Wakefield, who was heavily involved in child protective services. So I know that the uh, little screenshot thing said McMartin, but the reason why I put the original disinformation campaign is because McMartin is such a loaded topic. It's so complex. It's not cut and dry, and it's the catalyst, I would say, in media, a masterclass in media of disinformation or misinformation. And after looking through her videos, and she did give me full permission to use them if I wanted to, I decided that we're going to take a bit of a different approach because I don't want to just sit here and run through McMartin like a true crime channel. These kids deserve more than that, in my opinion. These kids have been gaslit and dismissed for decades now by everyone, including Netflix and Hulu and Oxygen and whatever. In the news, there's still articles. Anyway, so we're going to take a little bit of a different approach because I want to show you guys some studies. And I also want to show you guys, and I'm not saying that you guys don't know how to research, I'm not implying that. I would just like to show you sort of my methodology of where I verify things from. And I am going to give a quick shout out to Mr. David McGowan from Program to Kill. This is an amazing book that I cannot recommend more. This book is the book that I have all of my Instagram series on. They are also on Twitter. His book, his writings, is the ones that victims have reached out to me saying that their cases have never been discussed before, ever. So you may not like David McGowan. Some people call him still to this day a crazy conspiracy theorist. I would highly disagree. His work has aged very well. And I am so glad when victims reach out and ask me, who the hell wrote that book that you're talking about? Who wrote about my case? That's amazing. So I, again, could not recommend this enough. And a huge shout out to Dildo Gaggins on Twitter and his meme where someone is taking this book and beating them with it like a wrestling chair. Dildo Gaggins will always have a special place in my heart because that's where this came from. So let's get started. I am going to pull up. So I want to show you guys how I verify some of my information. Even a book. I don't like to use their footnotes. It's not that I think that I'm smarter than them, but I like to look things up myself. We all have the capability to do so. So I'm going to pull up a website, and when you look at it, it might look a little bit sketchy, and that's okay. But I'm going to show you how I verify that it is in fact not. So let me pull this up. Okay, so this is the internationalskeptics.com forum. And up here, the general title is Sexual Abuse of Children, Contested Issues, and Competing Interest. I'm going to scroll down here because, see, McMartin is always focused on. Understandably so. Those kids did not get justice. However, right here, Responding to Abuse, A Matter of Perspective by Kate Sinclair. She was a lecturer at the Department of Social Policy and Human Services at the University of Western Sydney. So I just want to read this here, and then I'm going to show you guys the actual cited article from a published website. That way you guys know that this isn't just some little clickbaity grabbed comment out of somewhere, okay? Let me see where I would like to start. So, this primarily down here discusses the details of McMartin, which I'm not going to go into today. That's what she's referring to, though, here. The themes that are described below were first voiced when the backlash developed in 1984 after the Jordan, Minnesota preschool sexual abuse case. Summit reported that the themes to emerge in media coverage from the Jordan case condemned and scapegoated prosecutors, police, and therapists, and portrayed child advocates as conspiring to entrap children and destroy families. It is instructive to note that when these allegations were examined in the Federal Court of Appeals in the 8th Circuit District of Minnesota, the justices found them groundless, endorsing both the motives and the methods of the child advocates in the Jordan case. Right here, this brings up a group called Vocal. And Vocal is very interesting. Now, let me see. You know what? I'm just going to stop sharing here. We're going to hop back over here, and I'm going to show the next page. So, that website looks a little sketchy, right? Like, I'm just in some weird rabbit hole. Maybe it's a QAnon thing. Who knows? Nay, nay. So, I looked her up, and now I'm going to show you that this is a published article. Here we go. Now, all of this. Look at how old these are, guys. Look at how many pages this goes through. Well, this just clicked something else, so maybe I screwed that up. Let's see. There we go. You guys still can see all the other stuff. I could sit here and talk about this all day. Here she is, Kate Sinclair. November 1995, Psychology, Responding to Abuse, A Matter of Perspective. That's the exact same thing that we were just looking at. So, Vocal, if you guys have never heard of Vocal, because Mr. Ralph Underwager was real busy. So was his wife, Helita Wakefield. And I'm not going to come on and, do a whole thing about Ralph yet, because since that woman reached out to me, and she told me that it was okay to talk about this, she was fighting in court to keep custody of her son. And from what I understand, was directly involved with Ralph Underwager's wife, Helita Wakefield. So I'm going to show you guys Ralph. I'm going to show you guys Vocal, and I'm going to show you guys an Irish publication where they mention this stuff. Because McMartin's going to take a really long time to get through. It's not just about the tunnels, it's not just about the medical records. It's about how these children and False Memory Syndrome Foundation board members used a massive PR campaign that has waged psychological warfare on those kids and other generations. Because I have a question for everybody. And it's a very serious question, and it's something that I've brought up multiple times when I am on Conspiring with Mr. Cooper and Digging with Chris Graves. If we could address this problem, and I'm going to show you guys 2 studies that really contradict each other that I confirmed, again, from Program to Kill. If we could get this under control, the abuse of children in this very specific way, whether it's within a family, whether it's trafficking, anything of that nature, how different would our world be? Would the prisons empty? Would mental health improve? Would big pharma maybe take a big hit? Because they wouldn't be so needed? I think that the social, societal, cultural, historical implications of everybody critically thinking about the entire Satanic Panic narrative could not be understated. So I will be talking about this for a very long time because this is the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. This is Jolly West. This is Margaret Sanger. This is Ralph Underwager. This is McMartin. This is Presidio. This is the Jordan preschool case. There's so many cases that are never talked about. And I am on a mission, and I am, to tell these kids stories because they deserve to be heard and they deserve to be told. And I'm not doing it in a way to be popular or dramatic. Another reason why I decided to hop on tonight was because Dildo Gaggins reached out to me, and I'm grateful that he did. So apparently, on TikTok, because I'm banned on TikTok, you want to know why? Because I have an Operation Paperclip series, and they banned me for inciting violence and hate speech for talking about Operation Paperclip. Whatever. Anyways, he sent me this video, and it was from TikTok, and apparently, and I might make some people mad, the LGBTQ, the last parts of that alphabet group, are on a PR campaign on TikTok talking about McMartin and apparently how it incites violence against that group because of Mrs. Doubtfire. Because Virginia McMartin looks like, Mrs. Doubtfire. Sounds like a bunch of QAnon bullshit to me. Excuse my language. I have zero patience for QAnon, guys. Zero. There's been a lot of interpersonal family conflict with that. So I don't know why we have this PR campaign for the False Memory Syndrome Foundation's board members going on, why QAnon folks and this other group that we're not really supposed to talk about is also coming on and discrediting these children. I don't know, but I'm not going to stop talking about it, so buckle up. We're in for the long haul, y'all, and then eventually I will get to the Franklin scandal because that was my Rosetta Stone, so to speak, because that one, yeah, the disinformation campaign about that one really hasn't aged well, but I digress. Let me see where we're going to get back to. Sorry, guys, this is a topic that I can and would likely rant about if you guys would sit here all day and, listen to me. So, here we go. I'm going to pull up the Irish Times. And also, someone asked me in one of my comments that this seems to be reported on a lot in Australia. And I'm discovering that. And thank you so much for pointing that out. Because I'm going to dig into that too. I'm also really curious about the British leg of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. I talked about it on my Dr. John Money episode yesterday. So, I have some petty reasons why I'm going to be looking at the British leg, but I am going to look at all of them because I've stated it before. This whole abuse issue is bipartisan, so to speak, if people want to make it political. And just so everyone understands, I don't believe in politics, okay? So that's not what this is about at all. This is everybody. Nobody's off limits, okay? So let me pull up the Irish Times so we can look at a little bit of Mr. Underwager. All right, so up here you guys see the Irish Times. This was published in 1996. Irish group is linked to opponents of child abuse programs in the United States. So-called experts who have whipped up hysteria about child sexual abuse will be named and held up to public scrutiny. Who's pledged this? Who would make such a bold pledge in 1996? Well, it's an Irish group with American links, and this group is called Vocal, Victims of Child Abuse Laws, and this is their Ireland sector. And right here, has a relationship with an American psychologist who has expressed controversial views on pedophilia. And look who we have here. We have, well, Mr. Ralph Underwager, his wife, Helita Wakefield, who, per this article, have been extremely active in the United States in opposing child abuse prevention programs and in acting as defense advisors and expert witnesses in child abuse trials. Oh, I'm so tempted to read. You know what? Guys? Give me a second, because we're going to do it. I'm going to do it. I said I was going to make a whole episode about Ralph Underwager because there's so much to talk about, and this is my channel, and I can go in any order that I please. So, we're going to read from this Irish publication that references his interview in Paducah, okay? It's going to be really unpleasant. Quite frankly, makes me want to throw my laptop across the room. The fact that this man was used as an expert witness specifically in child sex abuse cases is beyond me. But again, as I've stated, this is the hill that I will die on, because if I was one of these kids, I would be asking why none of the adults were asking questions and not realizing that something was wrong. Seriously, our frontal lobes are fully developed. We have no excuse. Here we go. All right. In 1993, a Dutch publication, Paducah, the Journal of Pedophilia, published an interview with Dr. Underwager and Mrs. Wakefield. In the interview, Dr. Underwager is asked, "Is choosing pedophilia for you a responsible choice for the individual?" Certainly it is responsible. What I have been struck by, as I have come to know more about and understand people who choose pedophilia, is that they let themselves be too much defined by other people. This is usually an essentially negative definition. Pedophiles spend a lot of time and energy defending their choice. I don't think that a pedophile needs to do that. Pedophiles can boldly and courageously affirm what they choose. They can say that what they want is to find the best way to love. And this is the kicker. I am also a theologian, and as a theologian, I believe it is God's will that there be closeness and intimacy, unity of the flesh between people. A pedophile can say, "This closeness is possible for me within the choices that I've made." Dr. Underwager has also been on record saying that women are jealous of sex between men and boys. This is someone who testified in hundreds of child sex abuse cases. Hundreds. Would one call that a conflict of interest? I certainly would. I mean, really. Pedophiles can boldly and courageously choose who they love, and they shouldn't feel bad about it. This was a founding member of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation's board, a founding member. Please, let's not forget that. I don't want to lose the plot. Okay? Because this is one of Jolly West's peers. Okay? Please don't forget that. Oh, Underwager, I cannot stand you. He is just a cesspool of a human being. And no, I don't feel bad saying that about him at all. And I found something really fun that I would like to show you guys. It was kind of a random discovery. That woman who reached out to me, who was in court, and she did win. She did win custody of her son. The fact that she had time to put all that together and also fight that in court is beyond me. But she is actually, her videos are put on a website that somebody else made with all this information about Underwager, and I just thought that was so cool. It made me really happy that she's able to help people in another way. So let me find this one right here. Where did we go? Yep, that's it. Okay. All right. Mr. Ralph Underwager. Does that, don't judge a book by its cover, but we know what he says. Would you trust him making any sort of professional witness testimony on behalf of children that have been sexually abused? I wouldn't, but that's just me. He received his education at the University of Minnesota. And this is her video. She made this video. I'm not going to sit here. We just talked about it, but she put it all together. And then right here, I would like to highlight this because this just gives a good breakdown, and this does match up with what's on Wikipedia for him. So he was an American minister and psychologist, and his prominence was in the 1980s and the 1990s. And he was the founder of the Victims of Child Abuse Laws, or VOCAL, a lobby group which represented the interests of parents whose children had been removed from their care by social services following abuse allegations. Now, if any of you guys follow my research, I know that CPS is a very huge problem. I'm aware of that. I'm making the argument in that one case that I'm working on that expands over into other countries that Child Protective Services and DCYF are very complicit and profiting off of this type of behavior. However, again, these things have to be looked at separately and critically. This is something that I say we throw the baby out with the bathwater, because Vocal's involvement via Ralph Underwager allowed a lot of forced a lot of children to stay in situations that were very dangerous for them. But we understand nuance, guys. We really, really do. Now, I want to show you an old article that was also referenced on that one kind of sketchy website, where it looks weird, maybe a little little QAnon. And it cites an article where in court, multiple times, this argument of these abuse allegations were claimed to be baseless. Baseless. No facts. We're not going to talk about the medical reports today, but we will. And I will reference this report and its later contradicting study to come back to, because I'm going to basically try to make like an encyclopedia of all of this, because I want this satanic panic narrative to stop. I want the false memory syndrome narrative to stop. It is criminal. And I'm not going to mince words about it anymore. It's wrong. These people have been gaslighting kids for decades. And I'm over it. So, this is a very old article from Newsweek titled "Suffer the Children." Now, I'm not going to sit here and read through all of this. I will note, though, this talks about Woody Allen and his kids. I don't really recommend going and looking into that, because that involves a 2-year-old. Okay? And I don't really care what celebrities are doing, quite frankly. It's not that I don't care about the kids, but I'm making the argument that if we can bring truth and light to these old, unsolved, dismissed things, we could get to the root of the problem now. But right here, because this is, kind of the big banger. Little is known about the effects on children of being caught in the middle of sex abuse battles that prove groundless. Some children will believe for the rest of their lives that they've been molested, says Richard Gardner, a clinical professor of child psychiatry at Columbia University. Others will be like a child who has been in a play and memorized a part. Weeks later, it's over, and they only have a faint recollection. Now, baseless, groundless, no proof. Pretty bold claim, considering that McMartin had over 400 children. 80%, 80, I'm not going to sit here and do the math. 80% of those kids, those medical records, supported that theory. Remember, it wasn't just one school. There was a daycare and other schools. Okay? Now, I think that the timing of the first ever international study that was ever done about this problem was released on September 11th, 2001. Just think that that's something interesting to note, but let's go ahead and take a look. Don't take my word for it, please. Let's go to the archives. Here we go. This is the CNN archive. Study: Child Sex Abuse Epidemic in the United States, September 11th, 2001, at 5:21 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A study released Monday revealed that between 300 and 400,000 U.S. children, many from middle-class homes, are victims of some type of sexual exploitation every year. Every year. Every year. That's almost 500,000, guys. Do you hear those numbers? Do I personally find it interesting that that was released on that day? A little. A little. Does that make me a conspiracy theorist? I don't know, and I don't care. But guess what? This is where I found out about that article, about that study. So it checks out. So, how do we go from groundless and baseless to there's an epidemic where almost 500,000 kids are affected by this every single year? I'm not going to go into long form videos yet. A, I'm not ready. B, McMartin, it ain't just going to be about McMartin, because I want to look at every angle. I want to look at the role of the media very specifically. I want to look at the cost of McMartin, because I've talked about the cost and the length and why I think that it is such a tipping point for, Netflix and Hulu and the true crime community. And I will say this right now, I am calling out the true crime community. Shame on you. Shame on the entire true crime community. I loved true crime for years. And you guys have fed into, and I would argue, are the agents of the modern disinformation campaign about these types of crimes. Okay? You can critically think. You don't have to believe what the news tells you. You don't have to believe what Netflix tells you. You don't have to believe what I tell you, quite frankly. I just like to show you guys where I get stuff from because this is really important to me. But shame on the true crime community. Shame on Netflix. Shame on Hulu. Shame on Oxygen. Shame on all of it. And quite frankly, shame on all of us as adults. Because at some point, and I guess I'll just leave it at this for now, you guys probably haven't, and I only say probably haven't because it really hasn't been covered here, the Dutroux affair in Belgium. When that case happened, and I'll discuss it at length at another time, initially, it was two little girls that suffered a very terrible fate. And do you know what happened? Do you know how they reacted when people found out that the government didn't really do their job in protecting those children? And I encourage people to go and look this up because the pictures made me cry. They halted the economy. Everybody went on strike. Seriously. For two babies. For two. That's how mad they were. And you know what they did? They dressed in white for the victims. And they filled the streets. And they demanded for Parliament to step down. And I could not think of a more appropriate reaction. Honestly. But we live in a society where we've got these people who are, using truths and half-truths about these cases and making little TikTok videos about, this is perpetuating like some sort of hate crime or discrimination against a certain group that shall not be named. And, feeding into this QAnon thing where, oh, celebrities, blah, 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 blah. I don't care about any of that. I don't care. I think it's time for everybody with a frontal lobe that's fully developed to atone for their lack of critical thinking. Seriously, because I'm tired of it, guys. I'm not going to stop talking about this. I'm sorry that I'm not more organized. I'll figure it out, but it's taken me a really long time to kind of grasp how big this is. Some people like to call it the octopus, right? And the last thing that I will leave on, or leave a note on, is everybody likes to argue about like a peer review article, right? So in the beginning, I showed you the sketchy website, and then I showed you that it was a cited published article. I don't know if you've heard of a man named Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father. So a lot of people like to present Mr. Maxwell's story as far as his fame, besides his, work with what I like to call our incestuous intelligence agencies. I'm talking about MI5, MI6, Mossad, NSA, CIA, blah, 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 blah. They all work together. So that way we don't know who's coming or going. But a lot of people don't know about Robert Maxwell and the scientific publishing racket. That's where that money came from. I have a series on it. It's on my Instagram, and I think it's on Rumble. If you guys would like me to, figure out how to put it on YouTube, I'd be happy to, because I really think that more people need to know about that. There have been scientists, a former head of the NIH, not the one that immediately comes to anybody's mind, who have said that it should be made a public scandal and that it holds back science because it's basically the mafia. So I would highly encourage people to look into that. And again, if you guys drop a comment, let me know. I'd be happy to cover it. It's a fascinating story. It's got Nazis and spies and someone falling off of a boat named the Princess Ghislaine. Did he fall off a boat or was he murdered? Who knows, right? Who knows? And it also has the interesting origins of Epstein's fascination with transhumanism. And if you guys want me to talk about transhumanism, I will too. But next time somebody says that you need a peer review article, just keep that in the back of your mind. That's what actually propagated up that family and helped perpetuate all these types of crimes. I know that that's really hard to wrap your head around. I had a hard time too. But we need to start looking at history with a more critical eye. If we don't care about children, and I don't even have children, this is what drives me insane. I don't have children. I wish that I did, but I don't. So I can't understand why people that have children aren't doing anything. I'm not blaming anyone specifically. I'm just saying I am on a lifelong mission now to give a history lesson. I will present the information and you can do with it what you wish. But this is the hill that I will happily die on because, again, it is my conscience at the end of the day. So thank you guys for watching. And this is going to be a very long-running series because all of this stuff just meshes in together. It's all, like I said, very incestuous, so to speak.